there's an important establishment that we need to be able to create healthy boundaries. And having daughters, it's important that they have healthy boundaries because a lot of things on the external are always trying to create flex within those boundaries or to not be respectful of those boundaries. So as mothers and as the matriarchs of the family, it's important that we're establishing very healthy boundaries.
Welcome, revolutionary mama, to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. I'm Ryan Watkin, educator, mom of 3, rebel at heart, and passionate soul on a mission to empower and inspire you. Here, we'll explore psychology, spirituality, parenthood, and the intersection where they all come together. We'll discover how challenges can be fertile soil for growth, and that even in the messy middle of motherhood, we can find magic in the mundane. Join me on my own personal journey as I talk to experts and share resources on education, creativity, self-care, family culture, and more. I believe we can change the world by starting at home in our own minds and hearts, and that when we do, we'll be passing down the most important legacy there is: healing. And so it is. Hello, loves. Welcome back to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. Today's episode is absolutely profound. It was such a healing conversation for me. I'm sitting down with Roxanne Chaput. And before I tell you a little bit about Roxanne, I have to give a disclaimer here. The audio on my end was a little bit off for some reason when we recorded. It seems to be getting better throughout the episode. So yeah, bear with me. And we're going to try and fix it, me and myself. I'm going to try and fix it the best I can so that it's not really annoying in your ears. But anyway, it's a little off. Roxanne is a globally recognized luminary, inspirer, celestial guide, celestial and generational earth shaman, creator of Cellular healing, creator of the Illumination Retreat, Oracle of the Divine Golden Order, and host of Soul to Soul with Roxanne. Her purpose is to lead beautiful souls to effectively illuminate their soul's luxuriance. I love that word. Roxanne is an advocate for being your own spiritual master. She brings the abundant, omniversal knowledge of full spiritual embodiment and connecting to the most divine creations while fully accessing an infinite source of intelligence, love, and knowingness. This conversation, again, was super profound. We kick it off with talking about purpose, and I think how Roxanne put purpose is my favorite way that I've ever heard it put. We talk a ton about healing. We talk a ton about spirituality. I even share some relevant and specific examples from my life on where I am working out some healing from the past. And Roxanne's intuitive guidance was really, really profound. And actually, normally I record these intros right after I do the interview. And right after I did that interview, I went and laid down on my grass outside in my house, and I just needed to reconnect with nature. That's another thing that we talked about. And I found just tremendous solace in the conversation and then in the healing actions that I took afterwards. One of the things I love that Roxanne says is that you are your own spiritual master. So you have the key inside you. You know what you need to work on. You know what you need to heal, and you know, even if it's on a deep level, how that healing needs to occur. And yes, we have guides and mirrors and masters in our life to guide us and show us the way and tell us what they've been through. But the number one person to help you out in your life is you. So spoiler alert there. So yeah, this conversation is just so deep. So let's just jump in. There's not much more I can say to that. Let's just do it.
Please note, the opinions and perspectives of guests on the Raising Wild Hearts podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Ryan Watkin or anyone associated with the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
Hi, Roxanne. Welcome to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
Thanks, Ryan, for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm really excited to share this space with you today.
I'm thrilled you're here. We were getting into it a little bit before we hit record, so I feel like we just dropped into a very sacred space, which feels very good. And really the first place that I want to kick this interview off is the word purpose. And I think we have kind of a misunderstanding of purpose. It's become a buzzword a little. There's this pop psychology that kind of has taken root in our culture. And so I'm really curious from your vantage point, what do you see purpose being? And also, what does healing have to do with our purpose?
This is such a beautiful question, and a question that so many have at a time in their life where they're really trying to understand where they fit within community and where they fit within the world and where they fit within themselves. And that identity, we tie it a lot to something outside of us in terms of purpose, when in reality, the purpose of who we are and what we do with our life is in every given now moment. And every part of our journey is part of our purpose. Every part of who we are in terms of our experiences, our expertise, our internal medicines, our sacredity of our gifts, our abilities, all of these amazing things that we have within us are all part of this incredible purpose that we've come here to master, and we've come here to really understand a multi-dimensional aspect of ourselves. It's an unfolding, it's a remembering, it's an experience to be able to witness ourselves in this multi-dimensional capacity so that we can have growth and we can have part of our soul's evolution transpire throughout our timeline here on the earth. So our purpose is in every now moment. And what we do with that purpose and how we show up for ourselves, how we show up for our families, for our children, for the world, for our communities, this is how we live in purpose. We're always living in purpose. When we, speak about being inspired or having inspiration, it's about being in spirit and being in the body of spirit and listening to our soul's guidance, listening to the whispers of our soul and following those pathways to understand the mastery of our journey. What is the lesson? What is the teaching? What is the integration? What is the growth? What is the gift and the reward that is received from what we go through and from what we experience? And that's the beauty of purpose. Purpose is forever unfolding. And some of us have a sacred purpose. Some of us have a purpose that are here to help serve humanity or to bring our artistry to the world or to help the animal kingdom or to help the agricultural environment. There's a lot of mixture of what we come here to do, and it's all part of who we are. And when we go through our journey, when we, go through the cycle of life and we go through career tenures and we do all of these amazing things, it's not to say that we're living out of purpose, but it means that we're building a tool set and we're building a toolkit and we're collecting all of these little pieces and all of these little keys so that we can have a further unlocking of what we're truly here and meant to do and designed to do in this timeline.
Hey, it's me, Ryan. So something I do every single day to invest in my growth, besides connecting with the humans on this podcast, obviously, is reading. Reading is where it all started for me. I was 5 when I became obsessed with books, writing them, reading them, collecting them. I love how I can get inspired with new ideas and stories and ways to grow. That's why I ask all my guests what they're reading. And finally, you can check out all the book recommendations from the experts and authors on the show in one place at raisingwildhearts.com/books. There are some life changers in there like You Are the Placebo and a few hidden gems like Sacred Motherhood and Living, Loving, and Learning. So if you want to get your hands on your next great read, check out the full list by heading to raisingwildhearts.com/books. Okay, back to the show. I don't know if I've ever heard a more beautiful way to put purpose. I'm so glad that's where we started. And something you said piqued my curiosity, and that is internal medicines. I have a sense of what that is, but I would love to kind of unravel that.
Absolutely. So we all, just like we're all uniquely designed, we all have our own unique soul designs. Even though we are all as one as a collective, we're all part of each other in spirit. We all have something that we bring, not even just to the planetary system, but we bring to the omniverse, to the galactic universe, that we bring in terms of our own sacred medicine, our sacred wisdom that we have within us. My medicine might be compassionate listening, empathy, being able to really attune to somebody else's wisdom. It could be a range of anything that we find that we are able to offer in an offering to somebody else so that they can also, in that mirror exchange, that they can also take a bit of that medicine when it's needed, right? Because we have that medicine to be able to give. And then we have also a part of our internal medicine that is sacredly for us. What do we need to, master within ourselves and our own sacred wisdom that we have within ourselves? Just because, we have information that is being received or that we have, channeled information that is being integrated into us, it doesn't mean that it's always for something outside of us. Sometimes it's just for us to sit with. So that sacred medicine that we have, it's an exchange. It's what we are able to offer in exchange. You go to the grocery store and you're just listening to someone's story. You just offered them your own internal medicine of compassionate, deep listening and attentive listening of someone being heard. That all immediately has that alleviation of them to be able to say, that was released for me. Thank you for holding this space for me. And that is part of our medicine. And I mean, we can go through the whole slew of all the medicines that we have within us, but everything is sacred to one person. Sometimes it's artistry. Sometimes it's, some people feel healing through looking at a piece of art that somebody has created or listening to a frequency of music or listening to anything that kind of brings them back into the attunement and back into the regrounding of themselves. So it's part of that medicine that is bringing it back.
So good. I'm as you're speaking, I'm trying to get a sense of what my internal medicine might be. And I'm sure I'm sure we all have many and multiple and various. And I would even venture to say, in different seasons of life, different gifts take a front seat. And for some reason, I'm intuiting that my sensitivity is one of my gifts. And it's interesting because it was, something that was a big challenge for me at certain points in life. And so I love the idea personally of the medicine being the challenge that you go through. Any sense of the validity of that from your stance?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the times we don't even understand what our sacred purpose or what our sacred medicine is, right? A lot of the times it takes others' reflection or feedback of what they witness in us that we don't witness within ourselves, because one, we just think that everybody else feels and thinks and does things the exact way that we do because we want, to believe that we're all the same. But in contrary to that, we're all very uniquely designedly different, right? So when we have these aspects of ourselves and when we're going through the mastery of those sacred medicines, we are going to be brought forth lessons to be able to have more of the unveiling of that, more of the unlocking of that. So if we're being met with something that we have resistance to, it means that the resistance is there because it's identifying that we have something that we need to further explore within ourselves. We are denying an aspect of ourselves and we're denying an aspect of our internal medicine. And when we come into a place of awareness, accountability, and acceptance, we're looking at that gift as a sacred exchange opposed to something that we're denying because we don't like the sensations of maybe the heightened sensitivity, of the heightened empathy, because it's so draining that it's almost like a protective mechanism. And it's also in that point of that stage of that journey that it's not time to have come into that full integration of that gift, right? Because if it was, then we would already be in the full integration of it. So it's there from birth. and it gets mastered along the way and it gets uncovered, and it's like a state of remembrance. We're remembering when you were a young child, did you have a, heightened sensitivity? Were you highly emotional? Were you, highly intuitive to other people's feelings and, the way that they carry their energy into the room? So if you reflect back, a lot of the times we've had that within us, it was just about allowing ourselves to uncover and to rediscover.
Mm. I love that. I think if we reflect on our experience as children, there's so much wisdom. And I think you just hit it spot on, because I forgot for so many years these different, I guess, gifts that I had, or even like interests or what brought me joy, things like just like nature. Like I
Yeah.
forgot that I was really in tune with nature as a kid. I
Yeah.
mean, I would even like in my 20s be like, oh, I'm not a nature person. I'm not an outdoor person. I'm not outdoorsy. And like, what? I just like, and so I've had this remembrance of nature for one, for sure.
I just
And
see you playing in the dirt and in the
yes,
mud and like having the best time of your life and making like mud pies.
1000%. And you
Yeah.
know what's interesting is that, love this, my kids reflected that to me, and I would watch them dig in the dirt, make mud pies, do all the things. And that is something that prompted me to begin to remember that.
And when you witness, I've seen, those reflections in my children as well. And when you witness that, at times, depending on what it is, there could be a bit of resistance, like oh, like don't do that. And then you're like, oh, wait, but it's so earthing and it's so grounding and it's so enjoyable. And it brings back that element of joy where we tend to forget along our path. We tend to forget about the elements that bring us joy, that bring us into the rootedness of who we are, of our creational abilities, of our imagination. And that's a really powerful thing and a very powerful distinction.
Yes, for sure. When I see my kids playing in nature, digging in the dirt, like getting dirty, I am like, I'm all for it. I don't have
Yeah.
that, like, that instinct to go like, no, don't get dirty. I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, my kids don't have like a piece of unstained clothing at this point. Like there's
Yeah.
paint and dirt and mud. So I really like that. But one of the things that I am finding myself resisting or telling them to like kind of shut it down is their volume. So they'll be feeling really joyous or excited or just playing kind of in their flow and in their zone, and they'll be at a really elevated tone. And I've started recently telling them to like be quiet, basically, like not in
Yeah.
too many words. Like I'll try and say it like, like, oh, inside voice, just like those cheesy things that we say sometimes in culture that kind of get stuck in our brains. And I realize like I have this awareness of like, I want them to be loud. I want them to express, but I'm also like needing more quiet because I hear so much, because I take on so much.
Yeah.
The noise, like the level is like overwhelming for me. And so I'm trying to figure out how to coexist with their loudness and still be in my peace,
Yeah. And I think there's a really important thing here to note is that at moments and times we do need solitude and we need solace and we need that quiet space, and teaching them that there's nothing wrong with that. And there's this part as well. There's like this fine line where we don't want to condition them and we don't want to really give them, the expectation that their expressions don't matter and that the way that they express the emotional body doesn't matter and that there's no really right or wrong way to do that. And then in the same breath, you also have your needs of what you need as a mother to be able to regenerate and to be able to refoster so that you can be the mother that you truly wish to be in presence of them. So I find there's always this balance of this is like exciting time, absolutely. But when mommy's in concentration mode, we have to also respect other people's space, right? Because we can't just go about life and not respect other people's space or, their sanctuaries or their sanctities. So when mommy's in this space, this is quiet time. So when we enter, it's quiet time. And wherever else you want to go in the house, you can be having as much fun as you want. But when this space and when you see mommy's doing this, we need to be respectful, just like mommy has to be respectful when you're sleeping. Mommy can't have, bursts of screaming and joy, when someone's sleeping. So I think there's a way that we can guide them and we can teach without hindering, right? And it's just about that communication piece, and everything with children is communication. And even when we think they don't understand our communication, they absolutely do. It integrates within their subconscious, right? So it's within the psyche. It gets, built into their core belief systems and their core values. And those are really fundamental things to have. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to have mom moments or have our own frustrations or our own irritations. We are human and we have an emotional body, and it's important to express that. So there's this beautiful way of respecting other people and then also respecting them and their expression to the fullest, and then finding that beautiful harmony that can coexist within the household.
Yes. Like, what comes up for me is when I'm at the end of the day, I typically have time with my oldest daughter. So my younger two kids are in bed, and she will sew or crochet or do some journaling, and we'll have this it's so sacred, but we don't label it as sacred. It's not like this is our sacred time. It just is.
Yeah.
And many times when she's kind of in her flow, I'll step away to get in the shower. And sometimes she'll come in and be like, Mom, look at what I made. And I have said to her recently, you know what? Right now, I just need a little bit of quiet while I put my cream on and get out of the shower. And I just I need a little quiet. And she's like, okay. And you know what the preface to that is? It's being okay for myself needing that first. And when I'm okay and when I'm in acceptance that I just need a little and want a little quiet when I'm in the shower and putting on my lotion and all that, that it comes off to her as very respectful. Whereas if I'm making myself bad or wrong or selfish, even very subtly, the way I'll communicate it to her will be spiky. And even if it's tinged with honey, it's still spiky, and she feels it and I feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think you touched on a really beautiful thing here, Ryan, because there's an important part of our children witnessing boundaries and creating boundaries, and the importance of boundaries and healthy boundaries to have for our own space and for our own mental health, for our own emotional health, for our own physical health, for our own intellectual health, for our own sacred time to reconnect, to reground. There's an important establishment that we need to be able to create healthy boundaries. And having daughters, it's important that they have healthy boundaries, because a lot of things on the external are always trying to create flex within those boundaries or to not be respectful of those boundaries. So as mothers and as the matriarchs of the family, it's important that we're establishing very healthy boundaries. Mommy loves you so much, but mommy needs her sacred time. When mommy goes into the washroom, there's no disrupting my time. This is mommy's time to be in the shower. This is mommy's time to have a bath. This is mommy's time to self-care, right? Because we want to teach our children that it's important for them to carve out time and to have sacred time for self-care so that they can have their cups filled, so that they can then fill others, cups up just as equally. So there's that piece is when my daughter knows, and it's mainly my daughter because she's, glued to the hip. She's 8. And it's okay, November, when mommy's in the shower, I know you love mommy so much and you just want to be by mom. But when mommy's in the shower or mommy's in the washroom, that's sacred time for mommy. Mommy just needs that. Mommy, wants to give you all her attention, all her time and all these things. But mommy also needs some of that time. And she's like, okay. Okay, I get it. And I'm like, if something urgent comes up, then you can disrupt mommy's time. But if not, then that time is for mommy and we need to respect that. Just like mommy has to respect when you want to play with your dolls and you want to have fun and you're into your imagination and you don't want anyone coming into that creative flow for you. And mommy needs that too. When mommy's writing, sometimes mommy needs that space to be able to concentrate and to sit within that energy and to be able to disseminate the information that's being channeled. And it's important that we're also sharing those gifts with our children so that they also learn to envelop and develop them within themselves. So I think when we look at this, we think that, we feel guilty as mothers. We run businesses, we run households, we run all these things, and then we're supposed to run ourselves into the ground and then expected to do everything for, within longevity and sustainability, which is not physically nor emotionally or spiritually or mentally possible. So we're establishing and we're creating very healthy boundaries, and we're teaching our children that boundaries are good, boundaries are safe. It's not creating walls. It's not creating defense mechanisms. It's not being aggressive. It's not being rude. It's about standing within our truth and standing within what is respectful to us and to our soul and to who we are as a person.
I have an 8-year-old daughter also, so I just so resonate deeply with the way that you portrayed this conversation with your daughter, because I can see and feel that conversation with her. And 8-year-olds every age is really unique and really different, but 8-year-olds are just still on that kid vibe. They're still kids, and it's so cool. And I love it because my oldest is almost 10, and she's very much getting out of this kid place and going into a different developmental phase, and it's fascinating to watch. But so I love picturing my little 8-year-old daughter too.
Yeah.
I love that you use the word matriarchs, and it feels like such a special and sacred and powerful word. And I think over time we've lost this feminine essence in our culture, obviously, right? And or maybe not so obviously to some. We do live in a patriarchal culture. Much of what we've learned in school and, been taught to do and been taught to succeed and, try hard and work hard as girls have left many of us, myself included, kind of burned out and questioning, what did I follow this path for? And kind of leads to this awakening. It did for me, which started about 10 years ago. I'm wait a minute here. What's going on? And I kind of woke up and saw, behind the curtain, so to speak. So I love that you use that word. How can we as women, as the matriarchs of our family, step into this very queen energy, I guess I would call it? That's what's coming up.
We are definitely queens. And I think this has to also be connected to the healthy and the unhealthy woman empowerment that we've seen, rival through society, rival through social media, through all of these elements that always allow us to feel less than if we don't do X, 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 X and check all these boxes. And it's really important to note that, yes, as women, we were absolutely powerful and we hold that queen energy. We are the masters and the creators of our families. And yes, men are equally as important. There's nothing about, men not being sacred. Absolutely. The divine male is absolutely sacred. And when they come into partnership, it's a beautiful union. There are roles for the matriarch because she is the creator, because she's the nurturer, and it doesn't have to look the same in every household. And that's where we are greatly deceived, because we think that it has to look the same and that we have to carry everything and that we have to hold everything and that we can never ask for help, or we can never, reach out and say, what, I've had enough. I need some time. It's very hard for women to voice what they need, because we're a lot of women, if we look at the generations before us, the generations that are currently, being brought up, and our generations of our women that we're trying to unteach, right? We're trying to go back into the state of remembrance of what is. There's this aspect for women to have nice girl syndrome. And nice girl syndrome doesn't mean that we say yes to absolutely everything, but nice girl syndrome means that, yes, I'm good. I got it. There's never a need for me to have like an emotional breakdown, or there's never a need for me to just feel overwhelmed. There's all of these things that we hold. And because we hold all of these things, it's very hard to express the emotional body, because we never actually have time to express the emotional body, because we're always within the survivorship of the family dynamic. So we can do it all, we can take it on, and then we create, a lot of animosity, we create a lot of resistance, we create a lot of, really, there's a lot of things that can happen in terms of how we feel towards our partners if we feel like we're not voicing what we need and we just expect them to understand what we need. There's a lot of things that can take us out of that congruency of being in our queenship, of being in our queen energy, and how we come to show up for our family and to show up for our children and to show up for our partners and to show up for business and to show up for all of these aspects of our life. And I feel like we've been greatly misled, because we were misled to think that we have to carry it all in order to be empowered women, when in reality, that is not the truth. A woman that is empowered within her divine feminine flow, yes, she can absolutely do everything, just like a man can do absolutely everything should they choose to, right? It's about a choice. It's about choosing what we want for our path. But the point of coming into divine partnership, or, having a family, is that everybody has a role within that family dynamic. Everybody has an aspect of that family dynamic that they can contribute to the family, should we only communicate what we actually need, so that we can actually be in the embracement of our actual feminine energy. And that is a huge lesson for a lot of women. When I go into mentorship and a lot of leadership, retreats and things like that of that nature that I'm facilitating, women have a very hard time voicing their emotional body, even though they can cry a lot, they can experience, but they actually don't actually release the emotional body. And a lot of it creates a lot of resentment towards their family, or towards their life path, or towards their, divine partner, or whatever that might look like. So it's important to understand that we are not meant to hold everything. Yes, we absolutely can. But if we're always being told that, in order for a woman to be empowered, she can handle it all, do it all, have it all in all these aspects, yes, it's possible, because we're limitless. But at the end of the day, we are only human, right? We are spirit and human body, but we are only human. And that's only sustainable for so long, until we burn ourselves out completely and we're no good for ourselves or for anyone around us. So when we're looking at our family dynamic and we need support, and our partners are willing to support us, or the family dynamic is willing to support us, it's important that we're able to make, those recommendations, or make those suggestions of what we actually need, so that we can be in our full matriarchness and our full woman divine empowered energy. And that's a really important differentiation. And when we're in the divine female power of energy, we are in our highest creational abilities of creating everything for our life. And when we talk about, the divine female and, femme energy and things like that, the femme energy, even in males have femme energy as well, right? It's really important for them to have that as part of their creational abilities. When I speak of creational abilities, that's not just from the womb. That's not about just creating physical life into this world or into the universe. It's creating the abilities and the dreams and everything that you desire for your life through your sacred womb, through your creational abilities. And when your centers of intelligence are holding on to the information that I can't ask anybody to help me, or I need to do this by myself, and I need to do it all by myself, and there's no one here to help me, and oh my gosh, I have so much on me and all these things. And then I'm trying to project out of my center of intelligence through my sacred room, through my energy center, that I, want to create this for my life. I want to create peace for my life. I want to create tranquility and freedom for my life. Well, what I'm emanating and what I'm resisting are the two of the same. So what I'm emanating is saying that, no, I actually don't want that, because I'm saying that I can do it all and I don't need any guidance. I don't need any support. I don't need any help. And the other aspect of that vibration of that eminence is bringing exactly what I am creating through my sacred womb. And our centers of intelligence work like that for everything, from our ancestral lineages, from our beliefs, from our experiences, from the wounding that happens. Everything speaks to one another and speaks to the universe. That's why it's called your solar plexus, because it speaks to the solar universe of creation. So when we're thinking about that and we're trying to be in our divine femme energy, are we creating time for creation? Are we creating time for the things that bring us into that natural state of divine feminine flow? Are we embodying our womanness? Are we embodying our sensuality? Are we embodying all of who we are in every creational ability of who we are in all ways? And are we carving the space, and are we speaking our voice for us to be able to have that sacred time to do that? Because you need the time and space to do that. It's very hard to be in your flow when you're in your male construct of construct, routine. This needs to get done, that needs to get done. And it's always about order, right? There's always a construct and an order. You can't be in flow. You need both energies to come into synergy, one to hold the space and the other one to be able to create the space. So they work in tandem, they work in infusion together. So even as a single mother, I'm a single mother of 3 beautiful children. It's important that I let my children, when I need to know, everybody lives in this household. Everybody needs to contribute in the best way that they're able to and the abilities that they're able to, because responsibilities are important in life. Cleaning your home and having hygiene are important things to have in life, right? Like that's something that you need. So how do we all contribute so mommy can have an hour before bed where mommy can go into more of her creational abilities, or go onto the mat and have ceremony, or to do the things that bring me into that divine creative flow? It's about creating the time to be in that fluidity.
Yeah. And sometimes I've found recently, like, carving out the time for nothing has
Yeah.
been a huge source of inspiration. And
Yeah.
just doing that very small practice weekly has opened up this new like window for me where like I want to paint that wall, and I'm going to meal prep like this, and we're going to have this for breakfast and this for dinner. And I think I'm going to try my hand at some wallpaper because I really
Yeah.
need some like color in this room. And like, I mean, it's just like the ideas just keep coming. And sometimes the past couple of years, things like cooking all the meals, getting all the food on the table has felt like an energetic mismatch. And
Yeah.
I've come to the table, literally, like no pun intended,
Yeah.
grumpy
Yeah.
and in resentment.
Yeah.
Like, this is a job, this is a chore. But when I allow myself to feel that space, have that space, tap into the creative flow, it's easy and it feels fun and it feels good and it feels just like, yes, it's just like falling together without force, without like pushing. It's just coming together.
Yeah, and the word is easeful, right? You want it to be easeful, and when we feel like it's resistive, it's exhausting. It's energetically exhausting because you're hemorrhaging energetically because of it, right? It's not feeling in congruency with your energy field. So it's really important, again, coming back to that fluidity where you feel in flow, where you feel like, ooh, like I want to create, I want to do these things. And it's not to say that that's going to be palpable or realistic every single day, depending on, life's path and depending on what's happening in that journey. But it's coming back into that remembrance of knowing, hey, I'm really not within my divine feminine flow. And that's really important for me, because when we're calibrated only in one energy field, that's not healthy for our energy field whatsoever. It's important. We have both energy fields to work in synergetic alignment, to work in harmony. Some days I'll be more in, the divine male construct and the male construct. Some days I'll be more in my feminine construct. But there has to be an ebb and flow. There has to be a fluidity, a merging of both energies, and not just being in the one energy source, because that's when we're in the one energy source, we're creating a lot of imprintation and we're creating a lot of dissonance within the energetic body.
Oh yeah, and passing that down to our children also, and
Yeah.
to have people kind of understand like how to ebb and flow with this energy. Something that I've found super helpful that I talk about quite a bit on the show is like cycle syncing. So like noticing where I'm at in my 28-day cycle and scheduling things as allowable, like around that, or the moon, or just like, allowing a day where like there's nothing on the calendar and I can just like go to the beach or like,
Yeah.
just allowing for different things. But maybe the other like 6 days of that week, I am like very masculine and I am kind of getting stuff done and I'm checking the boxes. But maybe the one day I give a little more room. And so like, just like really allowing us to be on that cycle. I mean, we were designed like naturally like that to follow it. So I think that's like an easy way for people who are beginning to like live in this different energy to go
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, or when our body needs rest, right? The feminine again coming in and saying, your body needs rest. You need rest. It's okay to have a nap. It's okay to have a day that you literally just want to be in quietness. And that's okay too. And take a day from work or take a day from responsibilities while the kids are at school and have yourself a good old nap and how regenerated you feel afterwards, right? So it's what really brings you back into that place where you feel regenerated and you feel regrounded and you feel like you are pretty much, like on top of the world, right? When you're in your feminine flow, there's nothing like it because it's so exciting, it's so invigorating, it's so like just amazing because I love being in that creational aspect, even if I'm not creating anything, right? Like it's just like if I can lay on the couch and just curl up and have a little cat nap,
Mm.
like my day just got that much better, So carving out the space, and if there isn't space and it's just a day that, your schedule ends up clearing up just the way that it was intended because, spirit was calling you through body to come and be in your feminine flow and honoring that. Honoring.
Honoring that. Yes, I love that word. About a month ago, my husband and I do like a weekly budget and scheduling meeting, and he like got home and I was laying down for a nap and I was just kind of like waking up. And he walked in, he's like, "Oh, you took a nap." And I like has nothing to do with his opinion about it at all. He was very loving and like, "Great, good for you." But I think we have a tendency to be like, "Oh, I had a nap. I'm so sorry. I feel so guilty." Like that was almost like the first instinct of the place that I needed to go. And I said, I just really needed a nap. And he's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, great." And so just
Yeah.
like honoring that little voice. And it's not like maybe every day it's not possible. Like, but on the
Yeah.
days where it is, like feeling that and savoring how
Yeah.
good that feels. And that almost like makes it last a little longer in a way, like it almost like extends that pleasure and that just like beauty of
Yeah.
it.
And when we have that sensation of guilt as mothers, there's a lot of times, like I run a very successful business. So that takes a lot of time and energy, of course. And the kids are very understanding of that and they're very respectful of that. But my sacred time with them is just that is my sacred time with them. And that's a non-negotiable for me. So, right. So we have those boundaries in place. But when we're feeling guilty for something, I always bring it back within myself and within, the work that I do is what is triggering that feeling of guilt? What have I perceived? What have I learned? What have I come to understand that allows me to feel this motion that doesn't bring me forward, it doesn't bring me backward, and I'm feeling guilty for caring for myself? What is the root of that? Where is that sitting in an energy field? Why does that not feel congruent with me? Why am I feeling challenged with the way that I'm trying to be in a place of rest, right? So a lot of times being a mother, there comes a lot of guilt, especially when we're trying to maneuver so many aspects of our life, right? So I think it's always important to bring it back. Why are we feeling that dissonance? Why are we feeling that dis-ease, right? That's happening within us because we're actually taking time for self-care. Why do we feel that we need to explain ourselves? Why do we feel that there's an expectation that we have to be on 24/7? There's a lot of those elements that are conditional beliefs or beliefs that we've witnessed within our family dynamics or within, societal or environmental or, opinions of others of how, other situations have occurred or experiences that we had within our own relationship dynamics. But it's important to understand that if someone makes us feel guilty for caring for ourselves in that moment, there's a way bigger problem, right? There's a way bigger issue if someone is, in discomfort, if we're finding time to be able to be in rest. Our children are like, yeah, mom, you had a nap. Great. Like, are you happy now? Like, am I getting a little candy maybe? Like they're not bothered by it. So I think we need to be a little bit more easeful and a little bit more graceful towards ourselves, because a lot of that is all internal and it's not actually, has anything to do with how our kids perceive anything or how our partners perceive anything. It's our own perceptions within us that we're mirroring.
That's right. That's right. And I love how you said, like, get to the root of it, because I perceive like a lot of the guilt and the ways that I thought I was supposed to show up to mother were passed down intergenerationally. And, there's a lot of matrilineal trauma, a lot of matrilineal emotional abuse. And so I found like being able to sort out what's mine and what's actually like was never mine, I've just held on to, like, because of like the indoctrination, because of like just the energetics of being a woman and a daughter of a mother who was a daughter of a mother who was a daughter of a mother. I mean, and if you think back to like 200 years ago, 300 years ago, I mean, even way more recent, like women were thought of as like property, like property. Like, and so I am like unraveling much of that. And so that is to say, like, when guilt or these different uncomfortable emotions arise, like being able to discern, like, is this for me? Of course, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is for me and from me and because of me, and it's something that needs to be transmuted and met with love. But sometimes it's something that was never, ever mine.
Yeah, and there's this piece, and when we're healing in all these multidimensional levels, there's these activations and these projections that come to fruition and come to the forefront of where we're actually able to see where that rootedness is. And, when we speak about generational constellations and family constellations and ancestral healing and generational ancestral healing, all of these elements and epigenetics and all these things that play a factor within how we show up to be a mother from what we've witnessed and from what we've perceived, and how we begin to reparent ourselves of the ownership of what is actually my belief system, what is actually my wounding to be able to master, to heal. And usually when it presents itself into the energy field, even if it is not ours, it's about that generational healing, the 700 generations beyond us and the 700 generations before us, right? So there's all of these incredible things that happen. And if it's being brought to you, you might be, that's a spirit asking you to look at this and to be able to choose a different pathway, to create a new cycle, to be able to show up in a different way as a mother. And that is the most beautiful thing about ancestral healing. And there's also this element of when we have these core beliefs and these core values, and there's this deconstruction that needs to happen, because a lot of those truths and a lot of those resonances aren't ours, right? Witnessing our family being mistreated by maybe the opposite sex, or, having emotional dysregulation between mother and daughter, or emotional instability because they haven't processed their trauma or their wounding that has been inflicted upon them or that they've been a product of. There's all of these elements that get brought to the surface and brought to light so that we can actually hold that in space, and that we can look at this and say, I understand, and I have empathy, and I have grace, and I have compassion for this experience, but this experience is no longer needed. And that's what the transmutation of that is, right? It's that acknowledgement, it's that awareness piece to be able to release that. And when we look at intergenerational pathways, and we look at, the generations before us, we hold a lot of that trauma, even though it happens within the root of the center of intelligence, it actually gets held within the cellular component of the body and the cellular component of the body. So when it's coming to preview, when it's coming into consciousness, it means that it's still lying within the cellular field, within the cellular memory. And that's where that release needs to happen. When I look at you and I see where you might be holding into your body, or the nutrients that are coming into the body that aren't absorbing because of, not having that nurturing aspect, there's a lot of things that are happening in play. So it's about coming back into that congruency of bringing the multidimensional aspects back together so that it can heal effectively. And that's what we encompass through cellular healing. But it's about embodying the whole being of who you are, not just the physical, not just the mental, not just the emotional, not just the intellectual, but the entire spiritual being, emotional, all of these aspects of who you are, and bringing that into congruency and releasing it from the body, releasing it from the cellular tissues. Because as soon as we have something ancestral that populates, it's held within the body. That memory, that experience, even though it's not yours, even though it's from previous generations, that actual cellular disposition of the epigenetics is actually stored within your cellular body and your tissue.
Yeah. So, I mean, what comes to mind is like the body keeps the score, but you're saying the soul keeps the score, essentially, right?
The cellular complex is the biggest disposition within us, right? When we think about who we are as beings, we are soulful beings. I mean, it's in every religious structure, every scientific, metric. We are soul, we are essence, we are electromagnetic beings. And as we know, energy can't be created, nor can it be destroyed. So that then means that our soul can never be created, recreated, other than from the creator, from God, consciousness. It can never be recreated, nor can it be destroyed. So that means that soul, that energy, right, as part of your family, we are all as one. We hold on to these imprintations and we hold on to these things within our cellular field and within our cellular memory. And that cellular memory, as we know, we have a DNA strand. That DNA strand is a twofold DNA strand. But what they've just discovered is that we actually have a third DNA strand, and that's called your cellular memory. And that cellular memory holds all of the wisdom, all of the memories from many, many, many life cycles before you, from many generations before you. And it doesn't mean that you have to believe in reincarnation, but it means that you have to acknowledge that your soul can never die. So it retains information. So when it comes into physical form, it expresses itself in physical form, and it'll come in a way of a memory. It'll come in a way of maybe, some discomfort in the body, because the body is the physical metric. It's the 3D metric. It's the avatar. It's a beautiful avatar. And that's what keeps track. It keeps track of the symptoms. But actually what's happening is all has to enter the cellular field before it actually ever comes into the body. A word of expression, a physical reaction, everything has to enter that energy field, that cellular field, which is your cellular complex, and then it enters into the cellular complex. So when we think about healing, it's important that we're doing multidimensional healing. And that's why you'll see, like a lot of times, talk therapy, psychology, neuropsychology, all of these things that I've been privy to. I've worked in healthcare for almost 20 years. They never actually affect true healing because it's denying an aspect of the multidimensional self because it's rooted within their cellular complex. And that's why they're now looking at more of a holistic or more spiritual context and bringing into their bodies of work, because they're realizing that the tools that they're giving it, they're fabulous tools. They're amazing tools. They help people with grieving processes. They help people with, trying to discover themselves and trying to figure themselves out, but it actually never affects true healing. There's always a memory still connected within the cellular and the cellular body until it's removed through the imprintation. So when we're witnessing that science and spirituality are coming together in congruency, and they're coming together because they can work in synergy together, that's the most powerful thing. So when we're thinking about healing, we have to think that we're not just, if I have emotional distress, I'm not just healing through the expression of that emotion, but I have to somatically remove that from my body so that it's not creating dis-ease or discomfort or disease within my body, right? Emotion is energetic motion. It's meant to be released, right? So we have to release that from the body. So there's a lot of things that happen, like when we cut ourselves or we get into a car accident and we hurt ourselves. That imprint didn't just come into the physical body, but it came into the energetic body, right? It came into a cellular and a cellular memory, and it held itself in the body. And you'll feel people they're like, yeah, I had surgery. It was a perfect surgery, but yet it still hasn't healed because the cellular component, the multidimensional component, wasn't acknowledged and it wasn't reciprocated in terms of their own healing, the activation of their own pineal gland.
Whoa. So how do you... I only have like 1 million questions. No, it's fascinating to me. And as you're speaking, I'm like thinking about something like practical for me. So like my third birth was like the most challenging one, and it was a home birth turned into a hospital birth. And
Yeah.
just, I was able to give birth vaginally, but I had some trauma associated with it just from like the medical industrial complex. Like that,
Yeah.
just walking into a hospital is like, eh.
Yeah.
So there was just some things that kind of came along with that. And so, and that was 3 years ago. My baby is 3 years old. And so I've been finally working with someone to process, like working with a practitioner to process it. And we were talking about like authenticity, and all of a sudden this story comes up and this memory and this da da da. And I was like, oh my God, where did this come from? Like, where did this come from? And I knew it was still kind of hanging out there. And so I think this is kind of like a practical example of like, I've been thinking about it for 3 years, like mentally. I've been playing
Yeah.
it back in my mind and
Yeah.
like, logically thinking about it, going, I could have done this, I could have done that, like feeling those feelings, even as far as like crying about it, grieving about it. Okay. Right. Then I witness, someone witnesses me. So I talk about it with them. And then I take it a step further. And after the witness, I kind of like shake my body. I feel this like tremendous like gratitude of like letting, like, I felt for the first time like, oh, I let this thing like kind of go. And then I stood on the ground and I just like took a minute and like gave whatever pain was left to like Mother Earth. And I just said, like, take whatever's left, like take the pain. Like I'm done hurting. I'm done like feeling this pain. I'm done. And so like take it and transmute it. And then like also just like thank you. So like where, like I guess my question for you now is like what's missing? Is that mind, body, and soul? Does that like check all three of the boxes? Not to make it like hyper masculinize, ooh, what's that word? Hyper masculine. Like
Yeah.
what else
So
did I
that I would,
miss?
yes, I would say that was more emotional body and
Okay.
a little bit more of mental body. So when I tune into your physical body, as you know, I'm a medical intuitive. In the physical body, I can still feel it in your womb and I can feel it within your roots. So that means that you're still holding within your womb. I've done this as well. I've lost a baby. I know that we kind of discussed that a little bit before, and it was
Yeah.
about I had to literally rebirth through my womb and excreted liquid that came out that was probably would have killed me over time. That
Yeah.
liquid that was sitting in my womb. And I did 3 like deep womb ceremonies, sacred womb ceremonies. That
Yeah.
excretion came out of my womb because I wasn't releasing onto it because the story was still sitting in my womb. So
Yeah.
when I feel into your womb, it's not to say that you're going to have an excretion, but I can feel it still sitting in the womb. And that's why it's still being brought to the forefront today, right? So when we release something truly, when we release and we forgive ourselves and we forgive the experience and we learn the alchemy of the experience and we allow the integration of that experience, we're not forgetting in the way of memory because the memory of the lesson is really vital and it's very important, but we're releasing the emotionality that is connected to the memory because we're saying, I've acknowledged you, I've accepted you, I forgive you, I love you, and I'm ready to release you back to the light. Thank you for the experience, thank you for the teaching, and I'm honor of that, right? So there was a lot of crying for me. It was a lot of grieving, a lot of in-depth crying because I was so grateful for my body, for my womb, for holding the space while I went through my own healing process so that I could able to actually fully release it from the womb. So when I tune into your womb, I feel still a lot of that dissonance and that discomfort of a little bit of like you failed me a little bit, like you failed me a little bit. So where does that forgiveness need to happen inwardly, right? Where can you go into somatic breath, into somatic movement directly into your womb, sit it right onto Mother Earth, go, I feel like you being grounded directly to the earth, like to like trees, earth, like right grounded to the earth. You'll
Mhm.
be able to do ceremony to fully clear out your womb, right? And it might be more than one ceremony, but it's about that acknowledgement of doing that spiritual context of the physical body. And there might be an excretion that happens for you in that way that'll feel very different.
Yeah. That's powerful. I'm crying, and I really feel the truth in that. And thank you, because that's a gift. Because, it's interesting. Like, I think we're just really trained to be smart and logical and like problem solvers. Like, you run a very successful business, like, right? We're so good at being smart and doing the things and getting the grades or whatever it might be for you. And for me, I mean, I lived decades, like, not even knowing that I had like a lower half of my body. Like, I worked with a practitioner one time. She's like, "Can you feel your legs?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "No, can you feel your legs?" And I was like, I guess I can't, and this may sound like super like, whoa, for people like, what do you mean you can't feel your legs? But I was so in my head that I wasn't allowing myself to just like literally just stand on the earth, like, just like be here. And so going through our individual experience for what it is that we came here to learn, it's so vital. Like, I got to a point in my healing journey where I was like, okay, I want to be here. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here for it. Right? Like, I'm here for it. And that was just like the beginning, like the work, the emotional body, cleansing the feelings, like doing the ceremony, feeling into it, like allowing our mind, body, and soul to release what needs to be released and then to integrate. I think this would be like a good place to end this conversation. I could talk to you for like a billion more hours, but like, let's talk about integration a little bit as we start to wrap up, and then I'll ask you the questions that I ask everybody at the end of the interview.
Yeah, I think you've really kind of guided us to a beautiful point of the conversation, because the integration of what you've just shared of reconnecting back to your sensory body, reconnecting back to your sensuality. And sensuality doesn't mean, just the intimacy level. It's the intimacy level within ourselves, right? It's how we show up to love ourselves and how we show up to be in love with ourselves. And that is the element of intimacy. So when we're in that integration piece, when we have acknowledgement, we have awareness, we're able to integrate because we're able to come from a place of understanding and understanding of ourselves. We're coming to a place of, I accept you. I forgive you. I love you. I understand why the experience was the way that it was. I understand what was brought to my attention. I witness you, right? And that's a really beautiful place for integration. And that integration is about that self-care practice and that self-love, right? Of loving. I always say, like, the most beautiful love story is when you fall in love with yourself. And when you fall in love with your soul, and when you fall in love with every aspect of who you are, and that integration piece is the tangible. The integration piece is the tangible. It's the action. How do I want to show up for myself? Knowing what I know now. Now that I know, I can't unknow. So how do I integrate that information? How do I integrate this aspect of my life? How do I integrate this newfound aspect of my soul resonance, my soul retrieval back into my life? How do I come to live? How do I reparent myself? And how do I integrate that parenting into my children, right? So it all comes back to this integration of action. The acknowledgement has been done. And now we have, the acceptance, the acceptability, and now it's the action. It's the piece of action. And how do I action that? And how do I action that for my life? And that could be sitting with something. That could be breathing into something. And that could be showing up completely different for another element of our life. And that's how we integrate. It's being, right? Integration is being.
Yes. Yes. So good. And so practical, because so much, like, a lot of what we're talking about could be considered like woo woo or really spiritual or like, kind of out there from somebody who might, just be new to a different kind of inner world. And like this part of it, like we are spiritual, yes. And also like we are humans. We have incarnated, like we've incarnated here. We're on planet Earth. And the part of it that I found it interesting that I need to master is like being the human on the earth, like doing the things daily to support my soul, to support my mind, to support my body. And it's just like, taking a shower
Yeah.
in silence. Like,
Yeah.
Taking a bath when I feel like it, taking a nap, like those simple things. So it's not all out there. It's and both. It's
Yeah.
yes,
And
we're spiritual, we're deeply
yeah.
connected, and we're here on our feet taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, and it's not even an end. It is, right? It is. We are spiritual, we are human, and we are multidimensional. And it's important to embrace that. And when we have the conceptualization that we are woo-woo, we are denying and we are creating resistance within ourselves that our soul self cannot be true. And there's no acknowledgement there. And when we have no acknowledgement of our soul and we're creating almost, a mockery of it, the soul deeply feels that, right? So when we listen to things and we attune to things and we listen with our knowingness and we are connected with our knowingness and we're not connected with the mind, right? The mind is where a lot of the belief systems and the fear centers are. When we're connecting with our knowingness, you can't unknow your own truth. And when you sit with the truth and when you sit with the information that is shared from the soul, it's very hard to deny an aspect of yourself. And when we deny that aspect of ourselves, that is when we are working in, incongruency. And that's when we have discombobulation happening throughout the multidimensional self because we are not accepting our full self as our full self because we are and it is. It's not about we are and, right? We are. That is. It is as it is.
Wow. Thank you. That was a gift. And for so much of this conversation, I've had my eyes closed and I typically don't do that, but I'm like tuning into inside and like what feels right and like just sensing that truth that's coming from so much of what you're reflecting back to me. So like just this whole conversation has been such a gift, Roxanne. You are a gift. I
Thank
so
you,
appreciate you. Yeah. It feels silly to ask you these three questions now after this super powerful conversation, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Let's do
it anyway. So the first question, oh no, first tell us where we can find you and follow you and learn about your amazing retreats and all the work you're doing, please.
Yeah. So I don't do any social media. I don't believe in social media. So I only have a website and it's at theilluminationretreat.com. I'm pretty much all client referral based. But if the retreats are things that others can attend, my leadership containers I'm very selective of who I partner with. Obviously, as you know, energetically, it has to be a synergetic alignment for me and where I see their growth and their trajectory of their leadership abilities. But yeah, so anyone can find me through theilluminationretreat.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I love that you don't believe in social media. That's refreshing.
Yeah.
Because it's all about perception is, that. But anyway, okay. So what is bringing you joy today, Roxanne?
I would say today, this conversation's brought me a lot of joy. And I would say in life, we have a new puppy. And I love animals. I love babies. I love everything. So we're just in heaven with that. And my daughter is becoming so sassy. So I was like, I love it because I'm witnessing myself. And my mom's like, yep. Payback. So today was a bit of sassiness, which I really enjoyed on my car ride. Just witnessing her, I was like, ooh, you powerful. All right.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I have two daughters and they are both growing it. One of them has been since day one, and I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah.
She's full of sass, even as a newborn. Like, I am not kidding. And then the other, my 8-year-old, is just like, also her sass is blooming right now.
Yeah.
This scream that like when you're like doing her wrong, when some of her
Yeah.
siblings are doing her
You
wrong,
know.
she's got this like fierce scream, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yes, I hear you. I
I
hear you.
always I always
Yeah.
tell my daughter, I'm like, "You're full of sass and ass, girl."
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Oh,
Oh my
she's funny.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, if anything, are you reading? What's on your bookshelf right now?
I don't read books. Not a
Okay.
reader.
Yeah.
I don't like anything ever altering my perception or my perspective. That's why I don't tune into social media. I don't do books. I don't do a lot of things that could change my perception. That's just my own personal choice.
Yeah.
For me, it's very important that I'm coming from the congruency of my own inner truth. Even if it's fiction, it's hard for me to digest because I feel like I don't want to take on someone else's perspective. It's really important for me just through my own mastery of journey. It doesn't apply to anybody else. It's just important for me to always be in tune with where I'm being guided and the divine truth that is kind of emanating from me.
So you don't listen to podcasts either?
No.
Wow. Okay.
No.
I'm chewing on that. That is fascinating. I'm very curious about that. Okay. And then the last question I have for you, Roxanne, is who or what has taught you the most?
I would say there's about 7 incredible women that have taught me the most about life. And I would say my mom is one of them. I've had very, very strong woman figures in my life. I would say my mother was probably one of them, and my aunts, her sisters, helped raise me, and they are powerful women. And they all gifted me some part of their internal medicine that I've embodied and that I have inherited. And it's just something that I deeply honor. And one of my bestest friends is one of my spiritual mentors. Her name is Ashra. Those will probably be, the strongest women that have really shaped me into the woman that I am in this now moment of always following my heart, always following my truth, always following my spiritual guidance. So very, very grateful for that. And I also had a couple of incredible elders and mentors in my tribal community of the Métis tribal community here in Canada that have really kind of helped shape me as well in terms of my gifts and really understanding the mastery of myself. As you know, it's always an unfolding journey, but really coming into my own truth and accepting my truth fully. And that has been a journey in itself.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for this conversation.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. It's such an honor. Thank you so much.
Hi again, friend. If you're listening to this, you made it to the end of a Raising Wild Hearts episode. Yay! Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you can hear more amazing conversations just like this one. And here's the deal. If you made it this far, go ahead and hop down on your podcast app and rate and review the show. Your words and 5 stars truly mean the world to me. Thank you for your support of the show. Thank you for showing up and listening week after week. I will be dropping new episodes every Monday, so tune in then, and I will talk to you soon.